There's something evil in the forest, and it knows my name. Every night at 2:13 a.m., a fog rolls down the mountain, thick, silent, and full of eyes. As the night ranger, I was given rules. Obey them, or they'll drag your screaming body into the trees. Last night, I broke rule number 6, and now something is knocking on the ranger station door, whispering my dead mother's voice that I wasn't the first ranger they hired for the night shift at Great Smoky Mountains National Park, but I might be the last. My name is Jeremy Clark, 32 years old, former Army, now park ranger. I had seen war. I had seen blood. I thought the forest would bring me peace. I was wrong. The Smoky Mountains are beautiful during the day, serene, majestic, and alive. But when the sun goes down, they change. Something ancient wakes up. Something hungry. They told me the night shift was low traffic, easy work, and mostly just watching cameras. What they didn't tell me was about the rules. The rules were handed to me by an older ranger named Donnie Graves, whose pale eyes looked like they'd stared into hell and made it back with nothing but silence. Scroll the rules, typed. Laminated. Bloodstained on the corner. Arrive before sunset. Leave after sunrise. Never step outside during twilight. Lock the station by 7:33 p.m. sharp. Use the silver key only. If you hear footsteps on the roof, ignore them. Do not look up. Check. Camera 9 at 12:17 a.m. Not before. Not after. If you see a girl in a white dress crying at the treeline, do not open the door. She is not lost. At 2:13 a.m., the fog will come. Stay absolutely still. It can't see you if you don't move. Never acknowledge voices calling your name from outside. No one else is supposed to be here. If the radio turns on by itself and plays old country music, unplug it. Then burn the cord. At exactly 4:44 a.m., you must walk the perimeter. Do not forget this. If you skip even one night, the forest will come inside. Most importantly, never, ever leave the front light off. If the bulb goes out, pray you brought another. You have about 90 seconds. You'll want to memorize those. Donnie had said, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. First few nights, you'll think it's bullshit. You'll laugh. But the first time you break a rule, you'll understand. I didn't laugh. I just nodded, took the keys, and drove my Jeep to the ranger station on the north edge of the park. It sat alone on a narrow ridge overlooking a thick line of trees that looked too dark, too tall, like they were hiding something. The station was small. A square wooden structure with rusted locks, creaking floors, and the faint smell of mildew. It had a cot, a small desk, a bank of security monitors, and one single window that faced the forest. That first night, I followed every rule. I locked the door at 7:33 p.m. exactly. I didn't look up when something heavy scratched the roof around 11. At 12:17, I checked camera 9 and saw nothing. Just a tree swaying strangely. But it was at 2:13 a.m. that I first felt true fear. Fog 2:13 a.m. The fog. I'd been sipping lukewarm coffee when I saw it roll in, slow, smooth, and thick. A dense white fog creeping over the treetops like a living thing. It blanketed the forest floor like spilled milk, swallowing everything in its path. That IT reached the station steps within minutes. The temperature dropped instantly. The hair on my arms rose. The coffee in my mug began to ripple, like something was moving under the floorboards. That I stayed still, that I didn't blink. I didn't breathe loudly. I didn't move. Then, something brushed against the window. A shadow. Tall. Wrong. It didn't walk. It glided. And then, it whispered my name. Jeremy. The voice sounded like my father's. But my father died 5 years ago. Throat cancer. I buried him myself. That I clenched my fists. Shut my eyes. The fog thickened. Then, it passed. Exactly as the rules said. That I thought that would be the worst of it. I was wrong. Radio. The first mistake. The third night. I broke a rule. That I was tired. Exhausted. I forgot to unplug the radio at 1:44 a.m. It turned on. A twangy old country tune spilled into the station. Musical note. Where the red fern grows. And the crows fly home. Musical note. The static kicked in. And then I heard sobbing. Deep. Broken. Coming from the speaker. I lunged for the cord. Yanked it out. But the radio kept playing. I grabbed my lighter. Burned the cord. The plastic stank. The flames danced. The music finally died. Then, 3 loud knocks echoed on the front door. Knock. Knock. My heart froze. No one should be here. Jeremy. A voice. My mother's voiced she's buried in a plot in Tennessee. Jeremy, let me in. It's cold. I stayed silent that I didn't move. Eventually, the voice stopped, but something dragged its nails across the door as it left. And in the morning, when I opened it, there were claw marks burned into the wood. Footprints, voices in the trees. Night after night, I followed the rules. I stopped asking questions that I saw people with no faces watching from behind the trees. Heard laughter where there should have been silence. Point one. Night, I saw something crawling upside down across the ceiling. Long, pale limbs, backward head, no eyes. Another time, the girl in the white dress appeared again. She stood at the edge of the tree line, hair covering her face. She cried, whimpered, then grinned. Her mouth stretched open, too wide. Rows of teeth. Black gums. She pointed at me and mouthed, "You broke Rule 6. I slammed the blinds shut. Fire the station burns. By the seventh night, I was unraveling, paranoid, twitchy. Every creak, every breeze felt like an omen. Then the front light bulb blew. I had 90 seconds. I ran to the storage shelf, fumbled with the box. No spare bulbs. My heart stopped. The shadows outside thickened. A shape moved across the window, fast. Then another. I lit my flashlight. Weak, flickering. The door creaked. I shoved a chair against it. And then the walls began to bleed. Yes, bleed. Black liquid oozed from the wood, dripping like tar. The floorboards groaned. The temperature dropped so low my breath turned to mist. I screamed. But dawn came. It always does. And somehow, I was still alive. Donnie met me outside as I stumbled out, pale and shaking. He handed me a new light bulb. "You made it longer than most," he said. "But you've seen them now. They've seen you. You either stay and follow the rules, or you leave and take them with you." "What happens if I quit?" I asked. Donnie just lit another cigarette and walked away. He never answered. I should have quit. I should have packed my bags after the third night, driven until the Smoky Mountains disappeared in the rear view, and never looked back. But I didn't. Because something about this place won't let you leave. Donnie was gone. The next night, no explanation. No shift report. No voicemail. Nothing. His truck sat in the staff lot. Keys still in the ignition. Cigarette still burning in the ashtray. His badge on the driver's seat, snapped in half. It was like he'd vanished. Mid-breath. And I should have been afraid. I was afraid. But there was something else beginning to settle deep in my stomach. Something colder than fear. Obedience. Not to the station. Not to the Park Service. But to the rules. They had become scripture. Because the moment you doubt, the moment you hesitate, something from beneath the forest starts to take notice. And once it knows your name, you stop being a ranger. You become prey. Repeat button the rules. We're changing that night. I found a second sheet of paper in the drawer. It hadn't been there the previous nights. It was yellowed, damp, and smelled faintly of sulfur. Additional protocol. Applicable after 7 nights of service if you hear. Knocking under the floorboards. Knock back 3 times. Never 4. Never 2. Camera 3 will show a man in a ranger uniform between 3 a.m. and 3:15 a.m. That man is not one of us. Do not speak to him. Do not wave back. If the owl outside starts screaming like a human, plug your ears. He mimics grief. He mimics perfectly. Do not touch the black moss growing near the east fence. It remembers every sin you've ever committed. Once the roots start breathing, it's already too late. I reread the new list 3 times. Hard. Hammering. There were things beneath the station. Things watching, listening, growing. Something underneath at 1 a.m. I heard the knocks. Knock. 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 Under the goddamn floor. They echoed from beneath the wood like someone trapped in the earth. I froze. My hand hovered above the rule list. Knock back. 3 times. Not 2. Not 4. I dropped to my knees. Pressed my ear to the boards. No voice. No breath. Just cold. Then I knocked. 3 times. The floor breathed. Like a long exhale of soil and damp air. Something shifted below. The station groaned. But then silence. Until I heard a soft voice from below. Good boy. I didn't sleep for the rest of the shift. Movie camera 3 at 3:06 a.m. Camera 3 flickered to life. I didn't want to look. But the screen was already on. There he stood. Same uniform as me. Same badge. Same posture. But no eyes. Just blank, fleshy. Sockets. Pink and pulsating. T waved. And when I didn't wave back, He raised both arms and began to smash his face into a tree. Over and over, the screen crackled. Blood misted the lens. He smiled through shattered teeth, and I swear to God, he mouthed the words, "You're next." I ripped the power cord from the monitor, but the screen stayed on. The man vanished just as suddenly as he'd appeared. Owl the screaming owl at 3:58 a.m. I heard it, a shriek so high and agonizing it split the night, like a woman being torn in half. But it was coming from the owl perch. I opened the blinds just a crack. The owl stared straight at me, wide-eyed, twitching, hunched, its beak opened, and from its mouth came my sister's voice. "Jeremy, help me. Please, Jeremy. My sister died in a fire 7 years ago. She was 12. The owl blinked, twisted its head 180 degrees, and screamed again. In her voice, I fell to my knees, clapped my hands over my ears, and then the whisper came from the radio static. "It's learning you." Seedling the black mossy was an idiot. I went outside at dawn to piss, and I saw it. By the east fence, black, oily moss crawling up the post like fingers. It pulsed. Curious, I touched it. My entire life flashed behind my eyes. Every failure, every lie, every regret. I saw the woman I cheated on in college, the kid I hit with my car in Texas and never reported, the pills I stole from my old squad medic in Fallujah just to feel normal. The moss showed me. And then it whispered, "We love the broken ones most." I tore my hand back, but the smell stayed, like rot, like guilt, like myself. Evergreen tree, the breathing roots at 4:44 a.m. I walked the perimeter, the ritual, the sacred routine. But this time, the ground was moving, not shaking, not rumbling, breathing. Roots heaved beneath the soil like veins, rising and falling in rhythm. I stepped carefully, but one of them rose under my boot, and I heard it exhale, like something huge was waking up down there. I looked behind me. Every tree was bent toward me. As if listening. And when I reached the far edge of the trail, something burst from the ground. Not a creature, not a person. A tooth. Long, yellow, human-shaped, embedded in a living root. I backed away. It twitched. Prohibited attempted escape. I tried to leave. I swear I tried. I packed my bag, grabbed my gun, got in the Jeep, started the ignition, but the GPS glitched. The road twisted. Time unraveled. I drove for hours and somehow ended up right back at the station. Same ridge, same fog rolling in, same front light flickering, except there was someone standing on the roof now, not walking, just watching. And as I looked up, the rules echoed in my mind. Do not look up. But I already had. The figure grinned and vanished. Skull the nightmare in the basement. On my 10th night, I found a locked trapdoor in the floor. It hadn't been there before, but I knew. Deep down, I knew it had always been there. I unlocked it using the silver key. Below was a narrow staircase. Dirt walls. The air was wet. I descended, step by step. At the bottom was Donnie's body, hung upside down, skin peeled, eyes missing. His lips were sewn shut. In his chest, carved with a bone knife, were the words, "You let it in." I stumbled back, and then something moved behind me. Not fast, not loud, just massive. I didn't look back. I just ran. Sundawn or something. Like it when I emerged, the sky was wrong. The sun hung frozen behind the clouds. Birds chirped, but in reverse, and the trees whispered. I collapsed on the station steps. The rules fluttered in my hand like dead leaves, and on the last page, something new had appeared. Rule 16, you cannot leave. You are part of the forest now, and beneath it, in Donnie's handwriting, God forgive me. We never survived past night 13. They never told me the forest had a heart, but I've heard it beat. Every night, it thumps louder beneath the soil, like something waking up slowly from an ancient, angry dream. It doesn't want me to leave. It wants me to kneel. Waning crescent moon night. 11. Silence is a weapon. The forest was too quiet. Not the usual night hush. Not peaceful. I mean dead, still, post-apocalyptic silence. No wind. No insects. No owls. No rustle of leaves. Just nothing. It felt like standing in a sealed tomb miles underground. I stepped outside for my 4:44 perimeter walk, flashlight trembling in my hand. The beam barely cut through the darkness, and then I realized the trees were gone. What used to be a wall of woods was now empty, black. Just pitch. Just space. as if something had eaten the forest. That I whispered into the darkness, "Hello?" And the darkness whispered back, but it didn't echo. It repeated me, an octave lower, a second too late. "Hello?" Scroll the final rules. It returned to the station and found a third page on the desk. The paper was damp, moldy, and smelled like old meat. The text was burned into it, not printed. Final rules. Night 11 through night 13. If you hear chanting from the West Valley, place earplugs in immediately. You cannot unhear their prayer. The deer will begin arriving around midnight. They are not animals. Do not meet their gaze. The lights will fail around 3 a.m. That is not a malfunction. That is an invitation. Refuse it. At 5:55 a.m., the root god will test your worth. If you survive, the trees will sing. If you fail, they will feast. By sunrise on night 13, you must choose. Stay and become the forest, or run and become the hunted. My hands trembled as I read that last line. Become the forest? I didn't even know what that meant, but I could feel it. Every night, something inside me was changing. Deer, the deer that don't blink. 12:03 a.m. They came, dozens of them, lining the edge of the tree line like statues. Antlers wide, fur gray, eyes black like glass beads. They didn't twitch, didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, one by one, they started stepping forward, not walking, gliding. And as they neared, I noticed their hooves were wrong, too long, too sharp, like fingers, and their faces, no, not faces, masks. Each deer wore a stretched, rubbery mask of a human face. Too tight, too thin, too familiar. One wore Donnie's face. Another wore my mother's. One wore me. It smiled. That I looked down, heart racing. The rules were clear. Don't meet their gaze. But I couldn't stop myself. And the one wearing my face moved its mouth. It said, "There's no difference between predator and protector. Not here." I blacked out. Woke up with blood running from my nose and a strange word carved into my arm. Rootborn. Flashlight. The lights go out. 3:02 a.m. Right on time. The lights blew. Every one of them, simultaneously, not a flicker, not a slow fade, just gone. And something opened its eyes in the dark. I heard it breathe, not from one place, from everywhere. The radio clicked on. A voice, low and wrong and crackling like it was being spoken through wet gravel, said, "You've been chosen, Jeremy Clark, but you have one final task." I didn't answer. The voice chuckled. "Bring the offering to the hollow tree, or we'll take your bones instead." I didn't know what offering they meant until I saw it, a small bundle wrapped in bark and roots left on my cot. I unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a human heart, still warm, still beating. I vomited, but I knew what I had to do. Deciduous tree, the hollow tree. I walked through blackened woods, past trees that whispered my sins, past the root veins, pulsing like arteries across the soil. The air tasted like rust and rot. And there it stood, the hollow tree. 20 feet wide, bark like wrinkled skin, mouth like opening yawning in the middle. Something inside breathed. I stepped closer. The bundle pulsed in my hand. The tree groaned, not wood on wood. Voice dash on dash voice. It moaned my name. Jeremy. I dropped the heart. Inside, the tree convulsed, screamed, then fell still. And then, out of the roots, a hand reached out. It was Donnie. Alive. Barely. He whispered, "Run, before it wakes fully." And then something pulled him back in. Candle. The chanting begins. West Valley. For 29 a.m. A low, rhythmic hum began, deep in the hills. Dozens of voices, low, ancient, terrible. It was in no language I knew, but I understood it. They were calling something up. I shoved in the earplugs, but the sound still came through, not in my ears, but in my bones. It made my spine ache. My teeth chatter, my eyes weep, and behind the station, the trees started moving, not swaying, walking. The forest was coming to life. They weren't trees anymore. They were witnesses. 5 o'clock, 5:55 a.m. The test. I stood outside the station, the wind dead, sky black, and from the earth, it rose, the root god. 20 feet tall, bark for skin, a crown of antlers, eyes like hollow moons. Its voice filled the air like thunder trapped in a coffin. Will you feed or will you fight? I didn't understand until it threw something at my feet. myownbody.org. Something wearing it. A perfect copy. Breathing. Awake. Only one of you may leave. My doppelganger stood, smiled. We fought. It was faster, smarter. It knew my every move. But I had one thing it didn't: fear, and when it hesitated, I tackled it into the bonfire I had lit the night before. It screamed in my voice, and the root god watched, expressionless. When the fire died, it nodded once, and the trees began to sing. Sunrise, sunrise. The choice 6:00 am. The sun finally rose. Warm light spilled over the blood-soaked grass. The singing stopped. The root god vanished into smoke. And in the station, on my desk, sat a final note. You survived. But you're not free. You may leave the forest, but the forest will not leave you. And carved into the station door, where the first rule once hung, was a new phrase. You are one of us now. They say the forest remembers every footstep you leave in its soil, every breath you take under its canopy. Asterisk, but what they don't say is what happens when the forest begins remembering you. Sunrise over mountains, daylight lies. I made it out. Or at least, I thought. I did. I woke up in my Jeep, covered in ash, dried blood under my nails, the sun blinding through the cracked windshield. The ranger station was gone. No sign of fire, no signs of struggle, no black moss or hollow trees. Just empty wilderness. I drove straight to town, windows down, praying for cell signal. Eventually, I hit pavement. Then bars came back. I called my brother in Knoxville. Jeremy? He answered. Holy shit, man, we thought you were dead. I asked him what day it was. Tuesday, he said. You've been missing 9 days. It should have been longer. Much longer. I told him I was coming home. I shouldn't have. House home isn't safe anymore. The first thing I noticed when I stepped into my apartment, the plants were dead. Not dying, dead. Dry, blackened husks. Even the artificial ones. And the air was heavy. Smelled like wet bark and decay. I turned on the TV. Every channel glitched. Then, for one split second, it froze on static and a single phrase appeared in blood-red font. You were supposed to stay. I yanked the cord out of the wall. The power stayed on. The fridge buzzed louder. My reflection in the microwave door moved when I didn't. Full moon night terrors returned. That first night home, I had a dream. I was back at the ranger station. Only it wasn't night. It was some other time. Some older time. The sky was gray and roiling, filled with whispering trees that twisted into screaming faces. I stood in the middle of a circle of deer with human eyes. In the center was the hollow tree. It opened, and from it stepped me, but older, covered in bark, eyes pitch black, mouth full of moss. He reached out and touched my face and whispered, you were rootborn the moment you stepped inside the Smokies. You just didn't know it yet. Then I woke up, but the worst part, my hands were dirty, my boots caked in mud, and there were twigs in my bed. I'm changing over the next few days. Strange things began happening. I stopped feeling hunger or thirst. I'd wake up with dirt under my nails, sap on my tongue, scratches on my legs I didn't remember getting. Birds began gathering on my windowsill. Crows, always in threes, always staring. When I went to the doctor, my blood test came back inconclusive. The nurse paled and muttered something about plant proteins. My voice started echoing, even in closed rooms. Worse, my reflection in mirrors began to lag. It blinked too late, moved too soon, and sometimes smiled when I wasn't smiling. Envelope with arrow. The letter on the 6th day. A letter arrived in my mailbox. No return address, just sealed in bark. Inside, a page. You were warned. You survived the forest, but broke the final rule. You left. Then, beneath it, scrawled in Donnie's handwriting, it always brings them back, one way or another. At the bottom, a date and time, Friday, 2:13 a.m. Stop sign. The final attempt. I packed up that night. Every weapon I owned, every survival tool. I was going to drive until I hit the ocean, or a church, or fire. Anything sacred, anything not forest. But my car wouldn't start, not a dead battery. Roots had grown through the engine block. When I popped the hood, they writhed. I set them on fire. They screamed. The air smelled like burning hair. And then I heard it from behind me, the crunch of bare feet on leaves. I turned. Nothing. Then my own voice whispered from the trees. It's time. Evergreen tree, 2:13 a.m. Full circle. It was exactly 2:13 when the fog came. But inside my apartment. It rolled in through the vents, out from the sink, crawled up the walls like mold. I couldn't breathe. I ran to the window, But outside was not my city. It was the Smoky Mountains, twisted, dead, blackened, and the ranger station sat in the distance, glowing faintly, calling me home. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. I blacked out. Axe the forest claims May woke up in the woods. On my knees. The hollow tree stood before me, open like a mouth. The root god loomed above. I didn't fight this time. I stepped inside the tree. Darkness swallowed me, and inside, I remembered everything. My sins. My choices, the rules I broke, and the truth. There were never rules to keep you safe. There were rules to prepare you. I screamed as roots broke through my skin, threading into my veins. My eyes melted and regrew, green and glowing. My voice died. Something older replaced it. I felt myself die and be reborn. Seedling, I am the forest now. I don't remember how long it's been. Time doesn't exist here. Seasons pass in moments. Or never. But I'm still watching. A new ranger came last night. He was young, naive, brave. Donnie's old boots, my old keys. He looked scared as hell. And I watched from the trees, unseen, patient, because I know something now that I didn't know before. We are not protectors of the forest. We are the sacrifices that feed it. One night at a time, one rule at a time. Clapperboard final message for the 60-minute ending hook. If you ever get hired as a night ranger at the Smoky Mountains and they give you a list of rules, don't follow them. Just burn the list. Burn the station. Burn yourself. If you have to, because the forest isn't watching you to see if you obey, it's watching to see if you're ready to join it. And once you hear the roots whisper your name, it's already too late.